Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. This is episode number 148, dedicated to a man who on November 2nd, 1938, won his third American League MVP award, Mr. Jimmy Fox. And as always, thank you for listening and downloading to the episode of the podcast. On today's episode, we talk a little bit about what Michael Jordan's former trainer, said about players in today's NBA. There's some news and notes surrounding when the NBA season will restart. We'll talk about that. And I have my own thoughts about the 9 a.m. local kick for those of you in Pac-12 country. But first, speaking about Pac-12 country, the Pac-12 conference starts their football season this weekend. That is correct. The wait is over. Every single Power 5 conference will have played and will be playing as of this weekend, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. for those of you on the West Coast. The wait is over. When I think about the Pac-12 playing, I think about their connection or their relationship. I believe it's that kind of a word. Their relationship in regards to football with the Big Ten Conference. Liken it to a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship or a husband-wife relationship. Try to do everything together. You try to talk through everything. You try to make sure both of you are on the same page, which is exactly why when it came out that the Big Ten was going to postpone their season or delay or cancel, whatever word you want to utilize, once that came out about the Big Ten, who was right there behind them? The Pac-12. Okay. Big Ten, you're going to do that? You're going to do that? Okay, well, I'm going to come right back behind you and show my support. I don't want anybody to know that we aren't together in this thing. You know the phrase, we're in this together. That's a phrase I've been tired of hearing. I'm really, really tired of hearing that phrase. We're in this together because there's so much false. There's so much in that that's not true. That it's saying it sounds good. But when you put it into practice, it's not. You're not in this together at all. But however, in this situation, they were. We're in this together. So Big Ten, as the Pac-12 speaking right now, Big Ten, I got you. I got your back. If you ain't going to play right now, we won't play either. And that's what happened. They set up. We're going to not play. We're going to throw in the towel. We're going to wait till the spring. And they say, oh, a California governor says we can't do anything right now anyway. Lo and behold, what happened? As soon as somebody asked him, Larry Scott, the commissioner of the Pac-12, asked the governor of California what can happen as far as players practicing. The answer was, yeah, you can practice. I never stopped you from practicing to begin with, which was a lie. He did. But once you ask a question, a lot of things can happen that can be positive for you in your situation. Big Ten decided to pull back. Pac-12 decided to pull back. But once the Big Ten decided to go ahead and play, I was wondering and waiting and trying to figure out when the Pac-12 would join them as well. I told you. This is a joint situation. This is a joint union. Not really in documentation. Well, for the Rose Bowl it is because they do play the thing together. Even if you go back into the 90s when you had you have quite a few split national championships. Well, the Rose Bowl, due to their obligation to play on New Year's Day, there was no desire. They were not a part of the bowl coalition or bowl alliance that named the national champion in college football, which is why you had in 1997 the Nebraska Cornhuskers go 13-0, national champ in one poll. The Michigan Wolverines go 12-0, national champ in another poll. Then in 98 you start the BCS and that train, which I really enjoyed that way more than maybe the playoff, but the playoff is really, really good. I just like the BCS Bowl, the BCS format. But the Pac-12 is playing football this weekend. The Big Ten decided to come back. Shortly after the Pac-12 decided to come back, and well, what happened? They had to wait. They wanted to go back instead of playing 8+1 like the Big Ten. I believe they're playing 6+1, which is what the Pac-12 schedule. So 6 regular season games and then 1 for Champ Week for that particular weekend of their season. All right, cool, whatever. You can do whatever you want with your schedule. You're not playing a full schedule, but at least you're playing. It all starts this weekend. For those of you that are on Eastern time like me, Arizona State and USC. I've been looking forward to watching Keaton Slovis play all year. Arizona and Utah at 4. UCLA and Colorado at 7, Stanford and Oregon at 7:30 Eastern on ABC, Washington State and Oregon State at 10:30, and also Washington and Cal at 10:30 as well. Those of you that have been looking and waiting for Pac-12 After Dark, yes, sir, the wait is over. You get that this weekend, and I'm happy. I'm sure you're happy. We have gotten West Coast football, BYU, Fresno State, Colorado State. You've gotten some of those West Coast games already. But it's nothing like Pac-12 After Dark. You can have a group of 5 game, but once you get the Power 5 level After Dark, your day is made. Pac-12 makes an appearance, finally joins a party this weekend. The Power 5 is complete. You have 100, I believe, 27 out of 130 Division 1A or FBS level schools that are playing. Let's get this party going. Everybody's here. Even though some people come late to the party, it's better late than never. Let's go ahead and take a trip to the airwaves of SiriusXM NBA radio, because David Falk, Michael Jordan's trainer, had a few things to say about today's players in today's NBA, and well, some made sense, some did not. When you first hear the name David Falk, it might not mean anything to you. You may think, here we are, here's another old guy talking about how the old school is better than the new school, about how today's players can't play back in the 80s and 90s, about how today's players, they're not physical enough, they're soft, and they couldn't last a second in that brand of basketball. Then you have today's players speaking about how today's game, it's more skilled, it's faster, more free-flowing. Those old guys, they're too stiff. They can't move. They can't play in our brand of basketball. It's one of those conversations, just like Michael Jordan and LeBron James, that's never going to die. You can try to dodge it as much as you want to, but it's not going away. You can't get away from it. And David Falk spoke about how Michael's day was better than what's going on today, and it got me thinking, David Falk, are you correct? Or is today actually better than what you say, and is today better than things used to be? There is going to be a time in everyone's life, no matter what profession you're in, you're going to compare the old way of doing things versus the way things are being done at that point in time. And in basketball, my goodness, it's not going to stop, not at all. People are constantly going to be comparing the old school 80s and 90s brand of basketball versus what's happened today. I have listened to numerous shows, numerous broadcasters where people are asking and people are saying, oh, well, today's brand of basketball is better. Today's players are more skilled. They're faster. They can shoot better. The old days in the 80s and 90s, those guys were stiff. All they wanted to do was fight. They couldn't do anything. Blah, 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 blah. What people fail to realize, the basketball in the 80s was a lot more fast-paced than what you think. I mean, you think about it. You have the Lakers and the Celtics, the 86 Celtics and the 87 Lakers, two of the best teams of all time. If you think about ranking top 5, they're in everybody's list. There's not the new school guys. You'll say, oh, that Cavs squad that came back from down 3-1 just because they did that feat. They're one of the best of all time. Not actually. That's false. You can say, oh, that Warrior squad, one of them should be in the top 5. Maybe. But at the same time, do you think that Warrior squad will beat the Lakers or Celtics squads of the 80s? Oh, stop right there with that one. There's other teams that are of the old school brand of basketball that were way better than what the new school guys may think. Go back and watch some old tapes. Or old film. I forgot we don't use tapes anymore. VHS tapes have gone away. We don't use DVDs anymore either. Those are things of the past. Go to the YouTube. Let the YouTube tell you and show you how old school basketball was truly played. David Falk made this statement about how Michael's day and how Michael Jordan would play in today's NBA. Now, I only heard the short clip. I did not hear the entire interviews to hear what else David Falk said. But David Falk, these are a couple of the tidbits and little points, bullet points that he made during the interview from the clip that I heard, and I truly think a lot of it makes sense. Some does not, some does. So let's hang around and we'll discuss what does and does not make any sense. David Falk said this about Michael Jordan. He said Michael, because he was Michael Jordan's trainer, he said Michael would average 60 points in today's NBA. He said Michael would average 75% from the floor in today's NBA. He said the closest thing to Michael Jordan is Kobe Bryant. He gave 4 reasons: Kobe's intensity, Kobe's athleticism, Kobe's desire to play for one team. Now, granted, Michael did play for the Wizards, but that was after he came back from his second retirement, and he did go to Washington there. Take that for whatever it's worth in your mind. Then he also said Kobe's burning desire to win is the other reason why Kobe is the closest person to Michael Jordan. Also, he did say Michael Jordan didn't want to play with Magic Johnson or Larry Bird. And he said if you were to ask Michael back at that time if he wanted to team up with Larry or Bird, he said no, definitely not at all. I would want to go against and be their opposition, not allow them to be on my team. I want to beat them, not join them. Which is a major thought, a major thing about the old school guys versus the new school guys. You see all the time. You hear Draymond Green trying to recruit players. He got KD to come in to Golden State. You got Kevin Durant going to Golden State after being eliminated by that team in the playoffs. You got KD going to Brooklyn to go team up with Kyrie. You got LeBron. You notice anytime LeBron leaves a place, and this may be a reason to praise LeBron or reason to knock LeBron in your mindset. But you have LeBron, when he went from Cleveland to Miami, notice he didn't go by himself. He had D. Wade and Bosh. Notice when he went from Miami back to Cleveland, what did he have? He easily had 2 All-Stars in Kyrie and Kevin Love. Now, Kevin Love, if I truly believe, if LeBron did not push to change Kevin Love's play and how Kevin Love played, I believe that Cavs squad would have been a whole lot better. Hey, LeBron, I know he hurts your game, but adjust to his skill set. Keep that man down there in the block. Keep K-Love where he's comfortable. Kevin Love was a walking 20 and 15 rebound guy. Now maybe 20 and 12, 20 and 13, whatever. But he's right there going to be getting 12 to 15 rebounds a night. But you changed your skill set. And I think that's one reason why the Cavs did not win more championships, because LeBron duplicated what he did with Chris Bosh down in Miami. Remember, Chris Bosh was that dude in Toronto. He was a problem. Go back and ask any of those guys that were 4 or 5s that guarded Chris Bosh back then in Toronto. They did not want to see Chris Bosh at all in the block. Not one of them. Why? Well, he's a lefty, and he had all the moves. But remember, when LeBron left Cleveland the second time, all this moving does seem a little odd to me. Went from Cleveland to LA. Who did he have? Anthony Davis, a top 5, maybe top 10 player in the NBA, depending on how you calculate that. LeBron had that. So, the conversation starter that David Falk had and said, I mean, there's some validity to it. Not just Kevin Durant, not just LeBron, but there's numerous players that travel. Kawhi. Now, Kawhi went from San Antonio to Toronto, already had good players from Toronto to LA. Do I knock him for going there with PG? No, I don't. You got to team up with somebody. You got to go there with somebody. Do I think that maybe if there was 3 players, I would view him more like a KD and a LeBron as far as the moving aspect? Absolutely, I would. But and Mike knew, you need 2 stars. You need 2 guys to win a championship in the NBA. Go back to the 80s. You had Magic. You had Worthy. You had Kareem. Call it a big 3 if you want to. You had them. Go to the Celtics. You had you had McHale, you had Parrish, call Bird, possibly one of the best front courts you'll ever see in the NBA. Call it a big 3 if you want to. they killed. What did you have with the Pistons? You had Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars. Don't knock Joe. Hey, don't knock Joe at all. Joe Dumars was a star in the NBA. What did you have with Mike? Now, granted, both of these players are drafted by the Bulls, but you had Michael Jordan and you had Scottie Pippen. What else did you have? The second three-peat. You had Dennis Rodman, an NBA Hall of Famer. What did you have with the Rockets? Now, the Rockets only really had one star. You could say Clyde Drexler was there for the second one, but Clyde at that time was not the player that he was in Portland, so I don't really want to put him and say it was a star there for the Rockets. But Hakeem Olajuwon, and you had a little bit of something else. What did you have there with the Spurs in 99? And I'm going through a little bit, but I got to keep it in context. In 99, what did you have? You had Tim Duncan, David Robinson, 2000 and 2003, Kobe and Shaq, 04, 03, 2000, 2001, 2002 was the Lakers, 2003, it's going off the top of the dome, 2003, you had David Robinson, you had Tim Duncan. I want to say they had Tony Parker at that time as well. 04, you had the Pistons. It really didn't have a star at that time. You may say Chauncey Billups, but that was the one squad. We really didn't have a star, just a great team. 05 Spurs, again, Parker and Duncan. 06, you had D. Wade and Shaq. And I'm not going to keep going. You guys get the gist. You guys got to have a couple of stars on a team in the NBA to win a title. You may say Kobe didn't have another star when he wanted two more in 09 and 2010. What do you call Pau Gasol at that time? Go back to the YouTube. You'll learn a lot about the player that Pau Gasol was at that time. Another thing David Falk said about today's players versus yesteryear and in the old school way of playing basketball. He said that today's NBA only has 4 or 5 superstars. Michael's day had 25. Here's where the conversation gets a little sticky. Here's where the conversation gets a little interesting. Here is where it makes you wonder and say, Hey. I know you're an old school guy now, but what you saying, I don't think it makes much sense, so I'm going to go against it. Now, I went back and I'm only going to look at certain all-star games. I'm not going to go look at the totality of the NBA because I think you'll find there's a lot more stars. I know a lot of y'all say, the old school way doesn't have many stars in the NBA. Look, y'all, if I went through every single team, sometimes there were only 25, 26 teams in the NBA. If I went through every single team, which I may do at some point to say there's a star here, there's a star here, there's a superstar there, you may be surprised at what you see. But here we go. I didn't go to this year's All-Star game because I didn't feel it was right when you have Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Steph Curry not playing in the All-Star game. So I went to the 2019 All-Star game, the 98 All-Star game, the 88 All-Star game, and the 06 All-Star game. The 88 and 06, the first time that Michael and LeBron won a All-Star Game MVP, and then 2019 and 98, the last time I could have gone to 03 for Michael Jordan. I just want to go to 98, the last time he was on the Bulls. But you're going to find there were a lot of good players in Michael's day. Superstar-wise, you'll decide that for yourself. But I'll go through this list quickly. 1998, here were the starting lineups for these two squads. On the West, Gary Payton, Kobe Bryant. Now, this is Kobe's first All-Star game. Put him as a star category, not superstar. Kevin Garnett was in his second. Karl Malone and Shaq. On the Eastern side, Penny Hardaway, a killer. Michael Jordan, that dude. Grant Hill was a problem. Shawn Kemp and Dikembe Mutombo. Shawn Kemp was on the backside of downside of his career, his sixth All-Star game. Pretty soon when he had that lockout, you saw he was eating everything in sight, and Shawn Kemp went from being one size to another. I heard he gained about 50 pounds during the lockout, and, well, the rest is history. In the 2019 All-Star Game, you may be surprised that it's quite even when it comes to the starters. On the Eastern side, the starters, Kemba Walker, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. I do not consider Joel a superstar. I don't consider Kemba a superstar at all. And Kyrie's on the fence for many people. He may be a superstar. He may be just a star. Can you win with Kyrie? That's to be determined. I don't think you can, but some people think you can for sure. Kawhi and Giannis for sure are superstars on that side. On the Western side, Steph Curry, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Paul George, and LeBron James. For the 5 there, you can classify as superstars for sure. I will say Kevin Durant and LeBron James and Steph Curry. James Harden, I know some of you don't. I think he is. For the way that he could score, Paul George is definitely not a superstar in today's NBA. Let's go to 1988. And I'm just going to kind of lay this out for you really quickly. 88 versus 06, talking about superstars versus non-superstars, where they were in their career versus where the other guys were. And we'll just wrap this thing up. Let you decide who it is that has the better players in the NBA. 1988. Superstar. These are the starting lineups for these teams. I am going to highlight a couple of the bench players from the 88 and 06 All-Star games. 1988, starters for the East: Isaiah Thomas, superstar; Michael Jordan, superstar; Dominique Wilkins, superstar; Larry Bird, superstar; Moses Malone on the backside, still a star. Not sure if he's a superstar category at that point in his career. On the Western side, Magic Johnson, superstar; Fat Lever. I had no idea the guy was a player in the NBA. Venture, you didn't either. Alex English, star. Karl Malone, I believe this was his first All-Star game. This is the star category. And then at this time, Akeem Olajuwon, not Hakeem. Akeem Olajuwon, a superstar in the NBA. On the bench of these All-Stars, now this may surprise you. On the bench, you have Charles Barkley, superstar in the NBA. Patrick Ewing, a star in the NBA. Kevin McHale, a star in the NBA. On the West, Clyde Drexler, a star in the NBA. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, still a star on the downside of his career. I think he's nearing 40 years old at this time. James Worthy, a star in the NBA. Xavier McDaniel, go back and watch some tape on this guy. You will see he is a dog. The 06 All-Star game, Allen Iverson, not a superstar at this time. D. Wade, young, but you could put him there possibly. He hadn't really taken that next step as far as this is the year he wins his championship. And I know after the championship, he gets pushed up to the pedestal. I don't believe he was there at that point in time. LeBron James, Jermaine O'Neal, who was hurt in 06. So Vince Carter started for him. Vince Carter, star, not superstar in the NBA. Shaquille O'Neal, superstar. Superstar at that point in his career as well. I want to say more star, because Shaq was more, you got the big Shaq down there in Miami. On the Western side, starters for the West All-Stars: Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, Tim Duncan, Yao Ming. It sure seems like it's actually more equal than you think. Now, today's NBA may be more skilled, but with them not playing defense and them really limiting themselves on what they can play. Now, granted, you got some players back in the day who couldn't dribble with their left hand, couldn't do a left-hand layup. You have some of the same stuff today. So to say that, yes, the old school, there's more superstars then than now, once you look up and down the rosters, it's more even than you think. Now, if I go to the 98 All-Star game, the one that I like, and I look at the reserves, you'll see there is a drop-off as the reserves. Jason Kidd, Eddie Jones, Nick Van Exel, Mitch Richmond, who was on the downside of his career, but he was a dog as well in the league. Tim Duncan, first All-Star game. On the east side, these are just a few of the backups. Tim Hardaway, Reggie Miller, Steve Smith, Glenn Rice, Antoine Walker made his first, who he was a problem in the NBA as well. Just to name a couple of them very quickly, you're going to find that there's a lot of good players in the NBA. Old school and new school. Old school guys, they don't want to say the new school is as good as it is. New school guys don't want to say the old school is as good as it is. I encourage you, do something like this for yourself. I know I'm laying it out for you while you're in the car. Maybe you're at the gym as you're working out for the day. But you'll find once you get away from the highlight sensation and environment that we have right now, where everybody lives off of the House of Highlights page on Instagram or what they see on Twitter, you'll find there's less superstars today than what the media will tell you, the mainstream media, and there's actually more superstars in the past time than what you may think. Hey, y'all, the old school guy, he starts talking, you don't want to listen to him, he may be wrong. It's actually, I think, closer as far as superstar of today, superstar of old school day, than what people may think. Everybody wants to know when the next NBA season will start. Normally, the NBA season, if it was a regular calendar and COVID did not get in the way, the NBA season would have already started by now. Let that sink in. Talk about how weird COVID-19 is shaking up the country and shaking up sports, which still don't think it needed to do that. Still think you guys could have gone on like things were going previously. But COVID-19 shook everything up. The NBA shut down in March, restarted in July. And at that time, there were rumblings about when the NBA would restart. Oh, NBA start on Christmas. That would be great. That'll be a perfect time for the season to start automatically anyway. That'd be amazing. Oh, okay, cool. That won't work. Okay, let's go back. And I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast recently, and he had heard, based on some things that some people he had talked to, that the season may not start until the middle of March. Why? Well, because the players have to relax. The players have to recuperate. Got to get their bodies in order. The NBA doesn't want to play with fans in the stands without a vaccine. They don't. Even though you can, even though you're able to do that thing, the NBA says, hey, we want to err on the side of super caution. We want to play in our own arenas, in the arenas the teams play in, as well as have fans in the stands to kind of get some of that money back. Because the NBA knows, and the players know as well, the salary cap is going to be affected based off the current landscape and how things are going in the NBA as far as the money, the revenue, the money they're able to bring in, etc., etc., etc. So it went from December 1st to being pushed back and rumors about it actually starting the season starting all the way back until the middle of March. Recently, it came out that the NBA delayed the target start date of the regular season from December 2020 to Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 18th, 2021. However, the NBA is targeting December 22nd, 2020 as its start date with a 72 or 82 game schedule. The NBA has no idea what they want to do. And you know what's going to shake it up even more? The fact that it's out there and news is out there. I think LeBron did this on purpose. Actually, I know he did. LeBron got it out there, let it get leaked that LeBron may not play when the season starts, if the season starts right there in December. A couple quick notes that come to my mind when I think about that. One, LeBron's going to try and take more time to recover and recuperate and get his body prepared for the upcoming season than normal. He spends over a million bodies. That'd be odd. Wow, not sure where that came from. $1 million, and I had bodies in my mind. Yeah, little fumbleization of the words right there, and that's what comes out. So LeBron spends over $1 million. There we go. A year on just his body, his nutrition, his workouts, recovery, over $1 million. So LeBron, with him knowing and understanding how his body operates, how his body functions, and what's needed for his body to recover at the end of a season to get ready for the next season, he says, hey, look, y'all can start without me. I'm not about to come back and play just yet. All right, cool. So the NBA is saying, wait, if we start with our biggest star not here, what's that going to do to the money, man? Because you know LeBron, we have marketed this thing with LeBron being the focal point. If LeBron don't play, if we don't have LeBron playing, if we don't have those eyeballs on the television screen, we're going to lose money just like we did during the Orlando bubble, because we all know, we realized that product was not the best that we could do, and we all realize that players don't want to play in that ever again either. So, man, what's going on? What we going to do? And it makes me just sit back and realize the NBA knows these players want to play in the Olympics. Maybe not all the stars. You may not get LeBron. You may not get Steph or Clay. But you're going to get a lot of these NBA players that want to play in the Olympics. And the NBA knows they want their season to be over, so they don't have to do what happens during soccer, where soccer leagues will halt their season for the World Cup, or where the WNBA will have to halt their season for the Olympics. The NBA wants to say, hey, we can learn from all of them and do this at the same time. This goes back to what I said back in the summer. The NBA really put themselves in a bad spot by restarting the season as late as they did. You have a restart. You announce it in the middle, maybe around the 20th of June. You don't start till the end of July. Basketball players, they can get ready for the season very, very quickly. Not as quickly as others. Not as quickly as it may seem like I'm saying that. But they can get ready for the season quickly. You know what else has come to my mind? NBA players, they would have utilized those 8 scrimmage games as preparation and training camp to get ready for the season. So, NBA, you may be trying to backtrack and say, oh, well, I know you want to play 82 or 72 in your home arenas. I don't think the amount of games you want to play will be feasible or will be something that is doable, but you can play in your home arenas. I firmly believe you should play in your home arenas. You want to know why? One thing, I don't think the players like playing in Orlando at all. I haven't heard, there's reports out there, but I don't think the players really like being secluded, being isolated, regardless of what's going on in the country. Forget all of that, the riots, forget everything. Think about you being taken from your family to go play basketball in a bubble away from people. You can see people on social media that are out having fun with their family. They're going next door to their neighbors whose family, or they're doing things. They're going to the gym working out, or they're going to the beach. And what are you doing? You're stuck at Disney's wide world of sports. Now, granted, there's great amenities there. The NBA did a phenomenal job of allowing these players to have great ways of recreation. I mean, they did that, but no, the players don't want to do that again. I would not want to do that again. Can't wait to see the NBA come back, but I said it back in the summer. I'm saying it again now. The NBA is going to be playing catch up. Notice, college football, the NFL, they're going to have a hiccup for one season and they get back to normal next season. Baseball have a hiccup one season and they get back to normal. The NHL may have a slight hiccup, but their next season is going to look way more normal than the NBA's will. NBA you want to err on caution, great, but you're going to have a lot of fans, a lot of players that believe, hey, we can play basketball in front of fans and allow people to attend the games to get more money than what you guys are thinking. We ain't got to wait for a vaccine. We don't. But that's what's on the NBA's mind. I don't believe a vaccine, even if they started in March, I don't believe a vaccine would be ready at that time at all, especially one that's approved by the association that approves things such as vaccines. NBA, I get it. Err on the side of caution. That's one side. That's one thought process. But you guys kind of did this to yourself. You guys could have started on time and restarted that thing and not have to push this thing back into football and not just lose ratings, but lose way more money than you could have. Woo-wee. My goodness, my goodness, my goodness. The NBA is learning right now. They're in a tougher situation than they thought they would be. Speaking of a tough situation that a certain football conference is trying to get themselves out of and to bring more eyeballs to their conference, the football that they play, the games they play, the Pac-12 conference resumes play this weekend. It's going to be a little bit different, especially week 1 of their season, which happens to be week 10 of the college football season. The Pac-12, and I believe this is the first time ever that the Pac-12 is having a kickoff this early ever. So, and on the West Coast, or just in general, you're used to, or even Central Time Zone, you're used to your team playing either at 11 a.m., the earliest 11 a.m. your time, or 12 noon your time. That's the earliest you're used to your team playing, and you've gotten used to that growing up. So if you're a youngster in Chicago or Texas or Oklahoma, I believe Oklahoma's on Central Time as well. Those of you there, or you're in Indiana like me, or if you're on the East Coast in New York, or you're in Florida or Georgia, Alabama, maybe you're in Tennessee, you have grown accustomed to the 11 a.m. or 12 noon start kick, the earliest kickoff for your school. You guys get a lot of eyeballs. You guys get a lot of the voters that are just right in their seat, right ready for the game that's coming on to kick off the college football Saturday. One downfall for Pac-12 football and those on the West Coast is that if you don't start and if you don't stay up, if you don't stay up late into the day, you miss Pac-12 football. You miss Mountain West football. You miss really good football, and some of those players will possibly need to be on the Heisman ballot and possibly need your vote because they're good enough to win the Heisman. I think of Andrew Luck. I think of Christian McCaffrey. I think Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart didn't have a problem back then. But as time has gone on, and that was a decade ago, as time goes on, what we find, you even have Joey Harrington, I think, of Oregon quarterback back early 2000s. I mean, I'm going back some time. Carson Palmer, early 2000s as well. I mean, there was a time period where those on the West Coast that normally played later in the day, they didn't have a problem getting the eyeballs and getting people like you and I to watch their games. Maybe it's a news cycle. Maybe it's more at our fingertips. Maybe it's more pulling us and dragging us every which way, and we just don't have the mental capacity, or a lot of us may not have the desire to stay up and watch football from those schools. So the Pac-12 has lost a lot of attention. I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, the attention, maybe 15, the attention as the Pac-12 used to get, it hasn't gotten much anymore. Also, you have conference realignment. So the Pac-12 isn't as sexy to watch as it used to be. So what do? You don't watch football. So this weekend, you have the first game of the Pac-12 season. Also the first game on Fox. I believe Gus Johnson, Joe Klatt, and Jenny Taft will be on the call. You have Arizona State taking the trip to Los Angeles to play number 20 USC. If I am somebody out there on the West Coast, would I enjoy and love watching football from the time I wake up until the time I go to sleep? Yes. However, another thing that I think about when thinking about a 9 a.m. kickoff, think about those of you on the West Coast, East Coast like myself. My directions are getting out of whack. The East Coast like myself. Or maybe you're on Central Time Zone. Think about those games where they're playing over in England, where it's either 9 or 9:30 a.m. kick our time. Which, if you're on the West Coast, if it's 9:30 Eastern, that's 6:30 Pacific time. That's early, baby. That's early, buddy. That's an early kickoff. And you know what I think about that? I don't normally watch those games. I don't. You may say, Jay, what are you doing? Well, some people like myself, I go to church on Sunday mornings, and even if I didn't, it'd be very, very hard for me to wake up and be right there ready for football. It would be. Now, granted, if the Colts were playing or my team were playing, if I were going to the game, that's a different thing. I have actually numerous times woke up on Saturday morning, gotten up to go to a basketball game that starts at 10 o'clock, and I had to get there before the doors open at 9, general admission, to get a seat. So what happens? I have gotten in line in the cold of winter to get a seat at a game when I've gotten there at 8:15, 8:20, 8:30 to get a seat. You know your boy, I'm going to cut in line. I'm going to get scooted out of my way to the front of the line to find a way to get a front row seat at a game that's general admission because it's basketball. You know, your boy would have sit in the front row. You do that. You do the things you want to do. As a player, however, your body clock, you're going to sleep earlier, you're eating earlier. You can get up, you can get ready for it, you can do it. It's just going to take some time to get adjusted to this new time slot that Pac-12 football will be played. For fans, great for you. You get football all day. You may not be fully woke up or fully awake until the second half starts, but you get football all day. For those people on the East Coast, a lot of us will watch Pac-12 football. I will be locked in to USC Arizona State this weekend at 12 noon. So I will be there watching that. But also, quickly, one other thing. If I'm a coach, if I'm a player, if I'm a member of the medical staff, you got to be very, very, very aware and calculate properly the time of what goes on. Wake up time, when you eat, when you go on the field, how you mentally prepare, how you get your players awake for the game. You got to prepare. This is a different animal, but maybe this is going to be what the Pac-12 needs to get more attention and to get their players to get the attention they deserve. Those players that are Heisman caliber, that deserve to be on the Heisman ballot and potentially win. One person I think that really pushed this is Christian McCaffrey and how he should have won the Heisman that year. I truly believe it. He was the best player in college football. But because he was on the West Coast and a lot of people, voters actually acknowledged they didn't stay up for the games that he played, and voters actually said they put their ballot in before he even played his last game, which I might add is before, because the Pac-12 championship is on a Friday night, it's before the Big Ten, the Big 12, the SEC championship games. You did him a disservice, and you did yourself a disservice by not properly watching every game before filling out your Heisman ballot. It's going to be a tricky thing. I'm waiting to see how everything unfolds, how the play starts, and how the play goes this weekend. But we get Pac-12 football 3 hours early, way earlier than normal. Hey, I'm here for it. USC, I get Keaton Slovis at 12 noon with my guy Gustin Joel and Jeannie Taft, my girl as well, Jeannie Taft on the call. I'm here for it, guys. Get in your seat. Going to be a full slate of college football, and college football fans like myself, this is what we live for. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. If you're not on Twitter and you would love to connect with the podcast, send all your emails to jstevenspod@gmail.com. Remember to always subscribe, rate, and review. It's a great way for people that are searching for a new podcast to listen to come across this one. Then remember to always get the word out about the podcast via word of mouth. The things that we enjoy in life, we are more willing and somewhat wired to tell other people about. So no matter if this was your first episode or if you have been listening since episode number 1, be sure to let people know about the podcast. This has been episode 148 of the Jay Stevens Podcast. I'll see you next time.